to move to Melbourne to chase a girl who ended up moving on to bigger and better things, as she would say. But anyway, thank you also for giving me an opportunity to talk to you about something I believe really strongly about. I got no intention of ever working in human resources, I have to say. However, I do believe that the issue of attracting quality talent, retaining quality talent is crucial for any business that wants to maintain long-term, sustained competitiveness in this industry. Why do I believe it's crucial? Well, I did some snooping around and I found this quote which sums up how I feel perfectly. I'll read it to you. An organisation's ability to derive competitive advantage depends largely on the quality of its workforce, because it is people who commit the organisation or otherwise, learn and innovate, lead and manage, make decisions, design, develop and produce new products, penetrate new markets and serve new customers more efficiently. So every job counts. Every job makes a contribution. Every job has an impact on the bottom line. I actually will probably take John's advice and elaborate on my role a little bit in my background, so you know what shaped my opinion and my perspective as I present to you today. And then I'm going to talk to you about some issues which I see in the industry on a large scale that I think the industry faces in attracting talent. I hope to provide some solutions, and then also bring it down to more of a micro level to a business level, and hope to share my thoughts with you there. So I've been in the industry only 4 years, or coming up to 4 years, and my experience is pretty much centred in the wholesale game in Melbourne markets. I've got a small amount of exposure to, I guess, the retail scene, and I guess backwards into growing and packaging, but it's pretty much the majority of my thoughts are shaped by that experience in the Melbourne markets. The biggest issue I see for the industry today as a whole is that we lack a unified image. We don't have a presence in the public eye. I think the only two groups that have successfully done that, I think, are farmers, and I think they have a soft spot in the public's heart. And I also think full credit to them, Woolworths, with their Market Fresh update and their Fresh Food People slogan. I think they're only the two real groups that have some sort of profile. The rest of us, as a whole, I think have failed to do so. And I think the reason for this is disunity, adversarial relationships. I feel a lot of finger pointing from my experience, and that's why, for me, this is my first PMA experience, and I think it's a beautiful thing. I think the whole supply chain approach, everybody's welcome, is what this industry needs. Yesterday we heard about National Vegetable Week. Some people might poo-poo me for this, but I don't think anyone could have got that concept together so quickly, trying to draw on all these different bodies that are just thinking about themselves. So, yeah. And because we lack, I think, a unified industry image, there's a lot of false perceptions out there. So, for example, I think a lot of people out there, a lot of the talent we're trying to attract, thinks this industry is boring. Well, I think we all disagree. I think it's a highly competitive industry, dealing with perishable products that are worth a lot of money. So, for me, that's a recipe for excitement, not boredom. And I think, unfortunately, also there are some perceptions out there which, unfortunately, are incorrect. Which I think are correct as well, which I think we have to work towards changing. For example, some people might say the industry is unprofessional or a bit dated. And again, I'd have to agree with them in some areas. So, for example, I was walking the market floor recently, and I heard one of the agents talking about how much he still hates computers and swears by his carbon copy order book. Now, how can we attract talent? I don't think they find that particular quality sexy. They're into their iPhones, they're into computers, they're into technology, systems that work together. They're not into double handling and triple handling and so forth. So what's the solution? Well, I don't mean to simplify it, but I do think it is working together to build a unified image and to change these perceptions. And I think the only way that can be done if we start addressing the micro-level issues, which is what we're here to talk about today, and that's attracting talent. So, as I said in the previous quote, every job counts. So I think we have to move away from what I call lazy hiring and move away from the focus of hiring family, hiring friends, and looking outside that. Since every job counts, why don't we be proactive. Instead of waiting for the talent to come to us, be proactive, take a leadership approach, and let's open the scope of who we're looking at to employ. So moving away from the focus on family and friends, I think they have their place, but moving away from their focus on family and friends and towards a mentality of hiring the best. So I think if you've hired someone and you can't go to your superior and say, I think this person is going to be either very good or excellent, I think if you can't say those words about that candidate, I think you've found the wrong person for the job. If they're good, if they're okay, or he'll be right, she'll be right, I think you've got the wrong person for the job. Only when you start bringing in the best or very good people, I think then you'll start bringing in an increased level of professionalism, new ideas, fresh solutions to existing problems. When we start bringing that in, well, then that'll start feeding its way up to the macro level, hopefully bring around some unity, and then we will create an industry that people will be attracted to. Then the people out there who don't know how exciting this industry is will find out, because there will be this unified front. So, yes, that's my presentation for today. Hope I've sort of been able to articulate my thoughts on that, and look forward to a healthy debate afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lucasz, to you and Summer and Tim for setting the scene. We now open the session up to discussion, questions and answers. So if you do have a question, if you could come to the microphone, and also if it's okay, just state who you are and where you're from and who you want the question directed to. Okay, Shane?
Shane Quinn from Lamana, and just first like to say, Summer and Lucasz, it's great to see some other young professionals in the industry being and taking a step forward to speak. It's great. Summer, you addressed it directly in your talk, but Lucasz, I know you'll have been exposed to it as well. And we feel it every day as wholesalers trying to recruit great talent to work in the wholesale market serving independent customers. The hours, how do you perceive they could be changed? Because I think we have to do it.
I'd like to tell my dad about that. Well, I think for me, I'm not too bad. I mean, my general start would be sort of 7 o'clock in the not so busy season, and then probably 5 o'clock in summertime, which is early, but not, not impossible. But the guys that are out there that are starting at 2, that's very tough, and obviously it impacts, on their families, on social lives, and just it's a very different environment to, say doing a 9-to-5 job in the corporate world. I think though you'd have to sell it to people originally as an apprenticeship almost. If you give them a time frame of, okay, for this amount of time you may have to start at these hours, and that's going to be your learning curve. And because let's face it, unless you're out in the market, in those early hours, that's when all the action happens. I mean, by the time, usually when I get in, it's nearly all closed. Maybe if you can sell it to them as it's a temporary measure for their initial education in the industry, and then work on a rotational basis, and maybe you just constantly have to have people moving through and maybe doing alternate hours. So they don't go in thinking, oh my God, for the next 10 years of my life, I'm going to have to go to bed at 8 o'clock and never be able to go out. Because unfortunately, that's what the initial reaction would be. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. I mean, you can let this person know that it's not going to be forever, but for their benefit later on, and for them to get the experience that they're going to need to progress through your company, that is just something that they're going to have to endure for a certain amount of time. And obviously, hopefully the pay would reflect, a little bit of that pain that they would have to go through. But if you actually explain the reason why that is what is required of them, I think it would be, a little bit more accepted. A lot of people just don't understand why people have to start so early, and like I said, a lot of my friends, they don't get it. They'll go into a store at 9 o'clock in the morning and everything's there, and to them, it was already there. They don't realise there's little fairies that run around the night before getting it ready. So it's about education as well. For someone who's totally not, has no experience previous to starting at those sorts of hours, I think you would need to actually sit them down and explain how it is.
Lucasz?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I think I have to admit I've also been lucky. The earliest I've ever had to start is 6:30, and if I had to start at 2 o'clock, you wouldn't find me within a cooee of the markets, to be honest. Probably value other things more. But I think nows can change, and I think it's a big push we're going through in Melbourne, the Wholesalers Association, and I just think it's that usual issue of change which we're finding really hard to break, people, because like I mentioned earlier, people have been recruiting within the family and their friends so often that they've only been exposed to one thing, and that's getting up early, that they haven't seen the other opportunities, other possibilities, other ways of doing things that exist, and it can be done. So I think one of the the hurdles we got across is changing the hours of the market, making it more attractive, because if you look at employers out there like Google, who are famous for, you can bring your dog to work, you can work whenever you want, you don't have to, if we're competing against that to attract talent, how attractive is waking up at 1 in the morning to be at work at 2? It's not, but it's changed its mentality, and hence we need to bring in those new ideas, I think.
Good.
I think you'll always have those jobs that have to be done at that time. I don't think you're ever going to be able to, let's all have the market open at 8 in the morning. Ideally, it's just not going to happen. But I think if you do let them know that the reasons why, and as you say, like actually maybe you could move other roles into different time periods. You could sell it as you start early, you finish early, and there are a lot of people out there that prefer that and actually do get used to it. I don't think it's impossible. I think you've just got to sell it in the right way, and like I said, and maybe make the benefits of that job, whether it's other time off or the wages and all sorts of things attractive. If that's what you've got to do, then I don't think there's much else.
Jared.
Thanks, John. Jared McEvely, Horticulture Supply Chain Services. I just want to contribute something to this because of the last couple of years, I guess my own passion for this area, I've been working on that Courses and Careers Guide that you're aware of, John. I'd like to congratulate and thank you for persevering and being here with your passion, despite your impediments. That really means a lot.
Yeah, and it wasn't my wife trying to talk me out of coming into the industry either.
But your intro I thought was terrific in just describing, I guess, what we all know, the incredible breadth of opportunities right across the board in our industry, which makes it so exciting for those of us that understand that. And I guess, Lucasz, you talked about the fact that the whole of the supply chain is represented here at this conference. I guess I want to take you up on that, though, because I'm and be a little bit controversial perhaps, because I don't think necessarily we're quite achieving that. And that comes off what Tim talked to us about. Tim, you focused on the more traditional sort of technical kind of approaches that so many of us took through